everyone. I am Ashley Jones and I am from Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I wanted to welcome you to today's episode of Between Friends. So I'm so excited that Eileen gave me the opportunity to be here with all of you guys today and share one of my favorite topics, and that is applique. So last week, Eileen talked about applique. She talked about the different stitch types you could do with applique. She talked about preparing your fabric so that you could get wrinkle-free applique. And so we are continuing on that same subject of all about applique today. And today we are going to be discussing pre-cutting your applique fabric. So we're going to give you several different ways that you can pre-cut. So I bet one of these techniques would work for you and with the equipment that you already have at home. Joanne and I are going to also talk about selecting fabrics and some tips for using those different fabrics. And because our crafting world is quickly overlapping with our embroidery world, I am going to talk about using heat transfer vinyl in lieu of fabric in your applique. So I had fun playing with that. It was actually something that I got from a friend of mine, Stephanie Young, that works at Caesar. So I'm going to share with you what I learned from her. So I'm really excited that we have a very special guest here today. I couldn't think of a better person to share this Facebook Live with me today, and that is Joanne Banko. And I bet you all know her. Hey,
Wow.
Joanne, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Ashley? Good to see you, my friend.
Yes, good to see you too. I'm so excited. Yeah, so excited to be here.
What a fun topic. Isn't applique just like one of the best things that ever came into the embroidery world?
Yes, absolutely. I love how quick it stitches. I love that I can use my fabric scraps, Joanne. I need plenty of reasons to use up those
all kinds of bits and pieces.
Yes, but you know what? I feel like some of our appliques, it makes me a scrap hoarder worse than I already was, because I can save smaller pieces now and then use those in my applique. So it really makes a huge difference. Well, I bet, Joanne, I bet everybody out there knows you and loves you as much as I do. But just in case we have someone new, would you mind sharing with everyone a little bit of your background?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I am from a long sewing background. I've had the privilege of working somewhere in the sewing industry my entire life, believe it or not. So other than a short little time working in a ski shop for a break time, I've pretty much been in the sewing world, and done a lot of traveling, done a lot of teaching. Obviously worked a lot with Designs and Machine Embroidery. I have a website called letsgosew.com where I love to share tips, tricks, ideas, inspiration for all things sewing and embroidery. I'm also a brother ambassador. So I've been a brother ambassador for many years, and that means I do a lot of sample type work for Brother. I write blogs for them, and then I am privileged to be able to use their products. So there's just so many great things in the sewing world to learn about, and one of my favorite things is just sharing anything and everything I possibly can to help others have more fun in their sewing space.
I totally agree. And I have learned so much from you over the years. And I think that all of us, Joanne, right? We learn every day, whether it's trying a new technique or working with a different fabric, which is some of what I've done. A couple of things here that I was working on for another event that Dime has coming, and working with different fabrics is an education in itself, right?
Well, definitely. That's part of what keeps it so fresh and so fun. Is that, every day is kind of a new adventure when it comes to sewing and embroidery. And there's just always so many great things for us to take advantage of. I love my Dime products, and we're going to be talking about some of them today, because what it is it makes everything easier. Right. And when everything's easier, it's more fun. We can get right to our stitching And before you know it, we're wearing something, right? Or
Right. I
putting
know.
it on the
I
bed or hanging it on the
know.
wall.
I love it. I agree. And I have to say that over the years that I've been doing this, I have had people, comment, well, I don't need that. I've done this for years and never had that before. And I always use the example of our rotary cutter. Before my rotary cutter, we did everything with our scissors, but I would not want to live a day
You are
without
so
my
right.
rotary cutter. So I think that's a great explanation that you gave. Really, the things that we talk about in some of these are, tools that maybe people don't have. It's not something maybe that works for everybody, but just educate you on what's out there so that when the time comes, you can make a good decision whether that will work for you and help you make your life easier and maybe get you to the sewing machine quicker, like you said. So that's a great explanation.
The more you know about all of the products that are out there, the wiser you can be, because yes, you may not have something right now. You may not even maybe think you need it right now. But once you see what the options are, now you can make a really wise decision for yourself and say, oh yeah, if I had that, I could do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And if your favorite part is stitching and your least favorite part is cutting, I can guarantee you there's a tool. Well, we're going to see that tool that you don't have to do that physical cutting. So there's generally, if you dislike, and I hate to say that word because I think we love most of everything we do, but if there's a part that's not your favorite, I guess I could say, I bet there's something out there that would either automate or make that process easier so
or
that
streamline it. Just streamline it.
Yeah, so that
where
you
you want to go faster.
fun. Yeah, get to the fun as quick as possible. That's what I'm all about. So I love it. So Joanne, speaking of fun, that's a perfect segue, and we didn't even plan that. So speaking of fun, I want to share some of the projects that some of the ladies out there watching have created and have posted for us to see with the new design that we are giving away every week.
That sounds like fun.
Yes. So Dime is giving away every week a new design, and we're calling it On the House. So previously on Between Friends, this was the free design. So last week, Eileen gave this design. It was a 60 weight thread, Joanne. And as you know, a thinner thread sometimes can really make the detail in a design pop. It just is. Sometimes it's just something you got to use. So this design was created with that 60 weight thread in mind. And the viewers have already shared some of their projects with this design and the one from the week before. So I just wanted to share those before we go forward. So, I got click happy there. So let me back up. So I want to start with Candy Bray. So Candy, I know, is a longtime viewer, and I see her on here nearly every week. She has already stitched both of her On the House designs, and it looks like she added quilting to the winter tree there. So she may already have an idea of what she's going to be doing with these at the end of the year, and she's stitched all 52. So we'll see more of her designs. I love how she used a different color for her little birdie. It almost looks like a variegated thread in the body part and in the top of the hat. Don't you think, Joanne?
He looks like he is a furry feathered friend for sure.
I love that. It's so cute. She did a great job. So I can't wait to see what Candy has planned. So, and Linda Wood Molden, she used her winter tree to embellish and create a pot holder. I think that was a fantastic
Very smart.
idea.
That's such a good way to even like stitch up a sample and then make something practical out of it. So good job, Linda.
Yeah, I agree. I love things that are actually useful and I don't just wind up storing them. So Deborah Morgan also has stitched her little skating bird there. I love that. And she did put the Mylar in the ice underneath the bird, and you can see that shimmer and that glisten there. I love that. Great job, Deborah.
What a great touch, Deborah. That is really, really
looks
slick.
gorgeous.
It looks slick.
Yes. Now, Deborah has been really busy, Joanne. Last year, as you guys are probably familiar with, Eileen gave away a small town charm design. And so one every month for all 12 months. And it looks like Deborah has finished every one of hers and she is making a quilt. Look at that.
Wow, what the beautiful colors. What great combinations there.
Yeah, absolutely. Bright and cheery. I love that. And impressive. She's got them all ready to go. If I finished it just in December, Joanne, it'd probably be next December before I got to this point. So
She's ahead of the game for sure.
she is. She is. I love it. So,
We do
so
have, I see JD Cougar wants to know where they get the designs from. So I'm sure
oh,
you're going to fill everybody in
yes,
on
yes,
that.
yes, yes. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but they are on our dzgns.com webpage. And if you search for On the House, you should be able to locate those or click the product and the free designs. I actually have a screenshot. We'll be showing them
Good.
that a little bit later. So,
Lots
and
more
we
to come.
right, exactly. And we have people watching for them all over. I absolutely love seeing everybody's location. So, Joanne, we've got people from Connecticut. Marjorie Hirschberger, I think she's a frequent flyer here, right, Marjorie? And so she's watching from Pennsylvania. We've got New Mexico in the house. I love that. All over Santa Fe. Oh, gorgeous city. Gorgeous. New Orleans. I'm an Alabamian, so New Orleans is very close to my home, Joanne.
Yeah, I love that area. I've been there a lot. It's really
Yes,
great
yes.
people.
And my friend Dara DeBose, do you know Dara? I bet you do. She is over there in California, and so I'm glad to see that you're watching, Dara. Thanks for joining in.
I
So
see Esther's here too, and I think Esther's from up north in Canada. She said we didn't find her bird, but I bet you Esther might catch it next time. So
yeah,
these.
absolutely. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Esther. We'll look for that. So, okay, Michigan, California, Missouri, I mean everywhere, New York. Bet in the house. I know Bet's in Arizona, I bet. So, very cool. So glad that everybody's joining us. Colorado. Oh my goodness. So wonderful. Reen says hi, Ashley, and hi,
Hey,
Joanne.
Lee.
We love Reen. So good to see everybody. So
What a great way to get together and talk
I
sewing, huh?
right, I know. And we're all over the place. So I'm in Florida and these people are coming from everywhere. And Joanne, you're in Ohio, right?
I'm in Northeast Ohio. Yep.
Yeah. So it's wonderful that we can connect to like this. So, okay. So, Joanne, I know that you have some really cool things to show us. So, I wanted to get started sharing your collection with everyone so that they can see the details of what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to use this opportunity to give them some tips and tricks along the way, right?
Absolutely. Lots of
Okay.
possibilities with this collection. Lots
Oh,
of possibilities.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So, Joanne, for those of you that don't know, Joanne actually teamed with us here at Dime and created this gorgeous collection, Just Jackets. And don't let the name fool you because I've put it on a variety of things. In fact, I'm not wearing a jacket, but I did put it on my shirt. So I love this collection. Roses, Joanne, is one of my favorite things to stitch. Not my favorite flower in person, but for whatever reason I love it in embroidery.
They're gorgeous when you embroider them, and with all the different fabric options, you can make any color you want, and
Yeah.
shiny, dull, soft look. Oh, there's just so many
Elegant,
things you
yeah.
can do. Yeah.
Elegant but fun. Also, I agree. So Joanne's collection is our special feature for today. So we do have a special price on that, but we're going to talk about this and some tips along the way. So I wanted to start, Joanne, by showing them some of these gorgeous images. Look, she's got it on. It
This
is
is one of my
gorgeous.
favorites.
I know it is just something about denim and bright colors, like the folk art collection, this collection here. I mean, on denim, it just really pops.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think a great collection that you chose, and all of them are really good, like you said, for jackets. So do you want to tell us maybe some of your inspiration behind creating this design collection?
Sure, I'd love to. It was an idea that I had for a really long time, partially because I do love wearing jean jackets.
Yes.
One of the very first embroidered items I ever made 30 years ago, it's been that long, was a jean jacket, and I went crazy on it. And I really didn't even know hardly what I was doing, but I just kept adding embroidery. So I've always loved doing that, but I've never really found a lot of collections that were geared for the areas and the spaces that you see on a jean jacket, the yokes, the collars, the cuffs, even in between the buttonholes, the large back area, the back yokes. You really need something that is going to fit those spaces and coordinate. So when I designed the collection, that's what I was searching for: pieces and parts that would work in all of those spaces and all of those places. And I really wanted the collection to be very full featured with large designs and then small designs as well. So Designs and Machine Embroidery just did a phenomenal job of digitizing, my ideas, bringing them to life, and creating a collection that really you can mix and match and do so many things with. Jackets is really only the beginning, because when you look at that, that could be a block, that could be a quilt block. We're going to talk about that today. It could be a pillow. It could be the center of a wall hanging. It could be, a trim on a towel. It could be edging on a placemat. It could be a border on a pillowcase. I mean, the list is really endless. And when you have small pieces, large pieces, and coordinating pieces, it gives you really the ability to design your own creations in your own way and make something really special.
I totally agree. That is the perfect explanation. I'm glad I I had the opportunity to hear that directly from you, because that inspires me to want to do even more with this collection. But I definitely agree. I think the coordinating pieces, that's something I'd never thought about until you just said that. You get a design and you think, oh, I could resize it to put it on the yoke, and the same one on the back, but you kind of want a variation. You try to edit maybe in your software or on your machine, and it's just not different enough, to suit your needs sometimes. Yeah. So that's a really good explanation. I also love how you give in the collection, there's a large, medium, and a small design pretty much, right? And they not only the coordinating, but the large with the applique, there's a medium one that's a regular embroidery design, and then a miniature version, which, like you said, those three sizes is definitely something I've never gotten in a collection.
Fit, and that's the other thing. I went through lots of jean jackets and lots of sizes. There really isn't a lot of variation in the areas on the yoke. So I just kind of made sure everything would fit just about everything. Sure, you can resize if you want. The other thing you can do is, you'll find if you dig into the collection, because at first glance, you see what's in there. But if you really dig into it, there are all of the pieces and parts that make up that collection, all included in, your digital download, if you do the digital download version. So if you want to create something with 3 hearts and skip all the rest, you can very easily piece that together. So you can create your own sizes as well.
Yeah. Great point. And actually, I'm going to show in the software a little bit later. We're going to be talking about the cut files that everybody needs to do their digital cutting. So when I go over there, Joanne, I will show exactly what you just said, because that's one thing I failed to take a screenshot of. I should have done that too. But you're absolutely right. Those parts and pieces. So then, you can kind of build your own design. I think that's a great explanation for sure. So it makes it really easy.
It makes it so versatile too. Because again, when you look at that, okay, so I like roses, I like stars, I like, the folk art motifs.
Yeah.
But then when you know that you can use both applique and embroidery, like, what you're showing, I mean, that, you can make a decision. Do I want this embroidered, or do I want to add fabric as an accent, as an applique? Do I want to do a little bit of both? Do I want to mix small, medium, and large? I mean, like I said, the possibilities are endless. It's very, very versatile.
I totally agree. So Celeste says she bought the Just Jackets collection, and it is great. I agree, Celeste. So easy to work with, and you can use them on more than just jackets, much more than just jackets. I totally agree. So true. So, and Diana Mullins Atkins says that she adores the folk art collection. I love those bright colors in there. And also, everybody's saying how much they love them. So I think we already have plenty of people that are going to love, Joanne, what you have to show, because it sounds like they already have your collection. So they're going to be probably getting some ideas today. So, and Esther says she posted posted on Instagram. So thank you, Esther. We'll make sure to check to make sure to add that into next week. So we appreciate that. So, yes, so lots of fun stuff going on. So those 3 different sizes, this is a good picture of those. And also, we're going to be talking about how to cut the applique, but you can see how those 2 small ones there, like Joanne was referring to, are the regular stitch out type design. So Joanne, I'm going to talk about a couple of different ways of pre-cutting, and you're going to show us how to do the pre-cutting with an electronic cutter, particularly the scan and cut, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
As a brother ambassador, I get the opportunity to work, like I said, with Brother machines. And that includes, of course, the sewing and embroidery combination machines and the scan and cut. But obviously, you know, it's a big world out there, a lot of machines. So by covering all these different options, there's an option for absolutely everybody. And you just need to, again, see what's out there, see how it's done, and then make a choice on how you want to do it for yourself.
Yeah. Which ones works best for what you love to do. So there's always trimming in the hoop. We've all done that for ages, right? But I have to say, some of the more intricate designs, even if you're not using an electronic cutter, just pre-cutting in general is much more manageable when you are dealing with some really tight spaces, curves, and sharp points and things like that. So I'm going to show how you can cut with a template, or you could always stitch a template right on your applique fabric, which is something that I know has been also done for years, but it's something you don't hear about a ton. I think, you know, partly because a lot of times it's easier to get stitching and do the trimming in the hoop. So I've got a couple of examples here. So, and then we're going to see how Joanne does it on the scan and cut. So trimming in the hoop, I bet the majority of you guys have done applique before. But if you haven't, make sure you're asking any questions over in the chat if we skip over something that doesn't make sense. But trimming in the hoop, you're stitching your design and you're going to get a placement line wherever it needs fabric, and then that placement line will be covered with fabric. Then you'll trim away the excess, and then you'll finish stitching your design once you've trimmed it nice and clean. So we're going to talk about different fabric options. So this particular jacket here, I'm actually going to show you under the camera, and I wanted a lacy look to my rose, and so I used a lace fabric, and I didn't like that I was seeing the color from behind, so then I backed it, Joanne, with another piece of fabric just so that I was getting that lacy look that I wanted. So I have 2 layers there that I was trimming through. So one tip that I would give for that is a scissor that is really good at cutting through several layers. There were several times I was sweating, Joanne, thinking that I was actually cutting through my base fabric because it felt like I was having to put too much pressure.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that is, I think, you know, probably everybody's maybe done that once or twice. We may have some newbies, but, and this is something that you may have not tried, but it's still a simple way. This requires you to hoop your entire piece of fabric and then just stitch the placement line. And in this example, there were applique leaves and the flower. So I stitched the placement line for the leaves and the placement line for the rose, and then trim those out. And then I've got my pre-cut pieces there that I use. The black thread is so that you guys could see the stitching. I would match that so that when your satin stitch covers the edge, you don't have to worry about pulling that black thread, black thread out.
That's a good method. I like that. That definitely works.
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, I just, you know, hopefully we've got something for everybody that maybe if they don't have all of the tools. Now, if you are pre-cutting with those pieces that you stitched the template in the hoop, I went ahead and prepped mine. So last week, Eileen talked about our Fuse Me fusible web. And Joanne, I think you mentioned that you've used that before. Yes, it's so lightweight. It doesn't change the hand.
The scissors you showed before too. I picked up a pair of these now. I have never had a pair of scissors so small and so sharp. So those work really well when you're doing the method you just showed previously. Definitely.
Right. Yes.
This is
that
good
trimming.
stuff.
Yes, that Fuse Me. Eileen talked about fusing your fabric last week. So if you missed last week's Between Friends, check that out because she talks about applique and different things. We tried to make this kind of a continuation, but I did prep these fabric pieces with the Fuse Me, Joanne, so that when I placed them down in those placement lines, I could go ahead and fuse lightly, and it held it in place while the stitching finished. And then I didn't have to worry about any puckering or my fabric shifting because, I don't have anywhere to tape it if it's the actual size of my placement line, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It really, it takes care too of the extra little ravelly ravelly strings that you have on. Some fabrics aren't as tightly woven, and you're going to have
Right.
that little bit of extra fuzz. And what the Fuse Me does is it basically seals all of those threads in place, so they're not going anywhere.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So Celeste says, what stabilizer do you use as a topper? So I'm not sure what specifically she's referring to. I don't have a topper in that example. We were referring to the Fuse Me fusible web to prep the fabric. But for a topper, with applique, I almost never have to use it. Sometimes if I'm doing applique on like a terry cloth towel, I don't know about you, Joanne, but I'll use that topper so that my stitches along the edge of my applique look great. So
I was going to say the same thing, but the thing with applique is that most of the stitches that are finishing the raw edges in, with satin stitch style, which is what we're showing today, they stand up on the fabric. So the applique fabric itself is really functioning almost like a topper, You can certainly add a water soluble topper if your fabric is going to, benefit from washing.
right.
It can't hurt, but it's kind of more like, why do it if you really don't, if you don't need to.
Right.
If you have a lot of extra detail lines, like you said, or you're worried about that fluff kind of growing up a little bit, you could use a topper just to tame those edges a little.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then Kay says she loves the lacy look. Did I fuse the two fabrics together? In that case, I actually did not because the lace was pretty open. For one, I was worried about so I've got the two pieces here. I was worried about the fusible, because when you add a fusible, you kind of get a sheen or a shine when you melt it. And so I was worried about that showing through, but I was not concerned with my actually fusing the two layers because if you notice in the rows, and actually I'll just flip over to my camera and I'll show you. So in the rose fabric there, Joanne, I wasn't worried about the two layers separating because of all that detail that you had added, that really adds the look of the rose instead of it just being a big open design. So all of that stitching is really tacking my layers together. So I felt like that was sufficient. I did use a fabric in the leaves that was like a faux linen. I wanted to be able to launder it, so I wanted to make sure that it was going to look great forever. So I try to make sure that I can launder the fabric that I choose the same way that I launder the item that it's stitched on. And so then I've got kind of a linen look there in my leaves. But I just wanted, this is a wine color. This was, in the closet, and I'm like, this really needs some embroidery. Do you ever look at anything and
it begs for it. It begs for it. Please do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just wanted to show, so on this side, I didn't stitch specifically so I could show this. So I did my jacket, and what fabric these days, Joanne, does not have stretch, right? Everything we wear is like, we want it to feel like our pajamas. And so this does have stretch through it. So I fused a fusible no-show stabilizer to the back. This is our exquisite no-show fusible. And then I love to use templates to help me with my placement.
Me too.
I've got really nice features on my embroidery machine, but I love to audition with my templates. So that's how I stitch that. But yeah, I loved how it turned out. Really nice. And that wine color with that kind of that muted look, I was really pleased. Sometimes, I stitch things and I'm really wondering why I chose those colors, but, but yeah, I just use those 2 layers. So this is a kind of it's like a cotton lace fabric that I had, and then I just used my quilting cotton underneath, and then my fabric here. For the leaves, I did prep that with the Fuse Me because that's my first layer, and I really wanted it to fuse and be nice and well bonded to my item, so that when it's laundered, it's going to look great forever. So,
well, it's interesting that you did that with the lace, because somewhere around here I have a sample. I did the same thing. I wanted to do white lace rose on a black fabric. So
yeah,
I actually layered a piece of white satin and a piece of white polyester lace, just inexpensive lace yardage. And in that case, I actually did fuse the layers together with the Fuse Me, because this is so fine. You can't see anything. It just completely melted away. So that's
good to know.
another
Yes,
option.
good to know. I definitely agree. I did another example. So this is also using lace, and this I just had this crochet kind of a ribbon or whatever it was. I don't even know. It was just some scrap. Joanne, how often do you grab that and say, "Oh, I should use that for something," right? And so I had a longer length of this, and I thought, oh, that would be beautiful in a monogram and kind of a tone on tone kind of look. Now this was a bit of a bear. I was really surprised, but this crochet, it is that it's like crochet. So trimming that was quite a challenge to make sure I got it close enough. And then I definitely, once it's stitched, I kind of look and I'm like, I'm not sure if I like that or not, but I love trying new things.
Beautiful, though. It has such an heirloom look to it.
Definitely has the heirloom look, and that's what I was going for. We have a new event coming up in a couple of months that I thought that this would be great to talk about, and it definitely, I agree with the heirloom look. But yeah, I love using a variety of things that, like you said, your scraps. Like sometimes you have this little piece of something and it's just beautiful, whether it's a ribbon or a trim or whatever. And I'm like, I just don't want to throw it away. I want to use it. So applique is great for that.
I see Shirley's asking too, do you need to stitch the item down when using the Fuse Me?
No.
You don't have to. You really don't. You fuse it. And that melts into the fabric and is a permanent bond. But but the beauty of the Fuse Me is that it's also stitchable. So, there are other products out there. You need to make sure you know what you're doing. That's why I pretty much, I'm exclusively using this, because I know that it's designed to fuse to fabric. It's designed to stay permanent, and it's designed for you to be able to stitch through it, and it's washable and dryable. So what more could you ask for?
And yeah, and even after it's washed and dried, I've got an example I show in another event that we do that I've laundered and it's still permanently bonded. So that's a nice thing. And Shirley asking about that, if you have to stitch it down. So Eileen, last week, if you didn't watch her presentation, she actually talked about fussy cutting flowers. Gorgeous. Kay Fawcett, I think, was the fabric that she fussy cut some flowers, and she didn't stitch them down at all. She just fused them with the Fuse Me and the permanent. Yeah.
Added it as an accent on top of the embroidery. So that's another great way to do it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's a wonderful product, too. So, and then, we've got some people saying that they love the towel. Thank you. Like I said, I'm still torn, so I appreciate it, Tracy. Tracy said she loved it. And so, but it's definitely a unique look, but I love testing and trying new things. It's definitely, a fun way to learn. Right.
Exactly.
So, and then,
I see a couple questions on the Fuse Me. It's basically, I would define it as a very fine, lightweight, fusible webbing. So it comes off the paper and onto the fabric when you press with a hot dry iron. So it doesn't have a sticky side. There's another product for that, but this one is just decided literally to create a melted, fusible surface on your fabric that's ready to be then melted onto your base fabric to bond the two together.
Right,
bonding.
absolutely. And I actually have a little piece of this, so we can bring up my camera there, and I'll show that how thin that is. So Marianne says, is it the same as a hot fix? And I have to say, I do have some of the hot fix and some other brands too. And I have to say, all the ones that I have here, this is a lighter weight. So my fabric has a softer hand than it did with the others that I tested. So yeah, we'll see. Let's I think we may have lost Sam there for a minute. So let me see if I can add me in. And so
I have a piece. Actually, I have a piece right here. I probably could show it on camera because you can peel it off the paper.
oh yeah, absolutely. There you
And
go. That's exactly it. Let me pull that
you can
back.
see it's like I mean, fusible webbing has been around forever. We used to buy it by the yard in sheets, but it wasn't designed like this product is. It was designed for you to just put between two layers and then bond. This is designed to stay on the paper until you put it against the wrong side of your fabric, and then you iron over the paper with a hot dry iron.
Right.
And then what happens is the glue, which is the webbing, transfers away from the paper and literally melts into your fabric. But it doesn't completely melt. It just melts enough to make that surface fusible now.
Right.
Did I
Yeah,
explain it?
I think that's a perfect explanation. That's probably better than what I would have said too. And so here I'll show you under mine. This is exactly what Joanne is showing you. So that is how lightweight it is there. It's super sheer. And when it bonds, you iron it to one side. So I have two pieces of fabric here. So this one I have already bonded, the green one. And so I'm going to peel off the backing. I've bonded it, and so it still has the similar hand as the fabric that's not been bonded. I mean, it is really soft. And
doesn't change the character.
Exactly. I love that. So that was what we were talking about last week there that Eileen was talking about. And then on my shirt, the roses that I stitched here, Joanne, I used a velveteen fabric, and that's what this is. And now I absolutely prepped this fabric because, for one, the little pieces go everywhere. But it also, this webbing will prevent the stretch. If you want to stitch on a fabric that is has a lot of stretch to it as your applique fabric. So like this fabric, or either like a knit fabric. This is actually knit in these two little cherries here. I definitely bonded that Fuse Me so that it reduced that stretch of the fabric there, so that when I'm using it for my applique fabric, it's not being pushed around by the foot of the machine.
It keeps it from rippling. Really, it does. It just
absolutely
it's like it almost acts as a partial stabilizer.
Right. Yes. Well. I totally agree. The different fabrics, though, really, what I would recommend to everybody. I don't know if you have other tips. I know you have some other fabrics there that we were going to talk about, but the different fabrics, you really want to, you need to stabilize based on the fabric that you're stitching on, first of all. So like this, look at this folk art design, Joanne. I put it on a little bag. Isn't that cute?
That is so beautiful.
I love that. That was my favorite thing that I created, that and my shirt that I'm wearing. And so, but stabilize based on the item you're stitching on. So the base fabric needs to be stabilized when you're doing this. And the fabric you're using for the applique design, that's what we're talking about, preparing to make sure that you get that best stitch out. But just so many different things.
I see Shirley's asking if it works on heavy fabric. Really, my criteria is this. I'd love to hear what yours is, Ashley. But for me personally, if the fabric can be ironed with a relatively hot iron, I mean, it's not blasting hot, but you need pretty good heat setting. If that fabric can be ironed, you're good to go. So the only limitation would be if you do have some fabrics that are really, really, really heat sensitive, and you can't apply a fusible backing to it, then there are many other ways to stabilize the fabric as well. You can even use interfacing. But if you're going to be able to iron it, then you're able to use the Fuse Me, and then you can make a permanent bond.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect explanation. So asking yourself that, is it heat safe? And then you can certainly use that fusible web. So, okay. So Joanne, I know that everybody wants to see the cutter. So I'm just going to say this quickly and then we'll go over and do, but printing a template is another great way to pre-cut. So if you don't want to stitch the template, you could print, if you have a way to print an actual size of your placement line, which is what I've done here in the picture. And so when you print, you can just place that template on your fabric and cut out with your scissors. So that's another very easy way to pre-cut. But then also digital cutters. I love, love, love that our crafting tools are coming in handy in our embroidery projects. So with your digital cutter, Joanne's going to give you more details, but you do need a file that your digital cutter takes. So Joanne's going to be talking about the scan and cut. You can cut with other digital cutters if you have one that takes like an SVG file. And then for me, Joanne, I don't know about you, but I always prep when I'm cutting on my digital cutter with some sort of fusible web or spray in stabilizer, something to give my fabric a little more body.
I'm going to tell you what I did for mine. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So I think this is a great place if you want to show us the machine, and then I will head over and then I'll start getting the software ready to show them how to save that file.
Okay, that would be great, because I'm going to start at the machine, and you'll see the block that I actually created here, and then I'm also going to show you how you can set the cut file on the machine itself, so that when you get to the scan and cut says, oh, I know what you want to do. You want to create an applique. So it's really, really very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera over here. And, well, you don't want to see that. You want to see the screen of the machine. Sometimes it has to wake back up. So I think you can see that. So what I've done already is I have preloaded the Just Jackets design collection onto my USB stick, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go in the memory, and I'm going to touch the icon for the USB. And you can see I've got a variety of folders here, but the Just Jackets entire collection is right inside this folder here. And you can see from what you saw in the pictures before, you can scroll down. There's all of the different designs that were shown in the color images. But again, inside are the pieces and parts. So if I wanted to just select a portion of, for example, this folk art design, I'm going to go into the parts folder. And there you can see all of the parts are in there. All the parts for the stars, all the parts for the roses, all the parts for the folk art collection. And obviously, if you selected the individual designs, you would see on the screen whether or not it was an embroidery design or an applique design. In other times, you can look at it, and it's pretty obvious because you see a blank space here. So we're going to work with this little leafy heart here. And we go ahead and select that. And when I touch set, I can see from the breakdown. Let me go ahead. I'm just going to fast forward through the design as if I were stitching it. I could see, oh, that's that. I'm getting a little bit of a lag on that, and I don't know that that's showing up. That's strange. Usually the camera clicks right in at the same time. And let me go ahead and just refresh that. I'll click off of it and then click back on and see if it catches that. Some reason it is not seeing. Oh yeah, okay, you're seeing it there, right there. All right, so I can see that this piece here is just outlined. So that tells me that's a design area that's designed to be part of the applique. And if I went through and I scrolled through, I would see all the different steps, because you've got placement, and then you've got the actual applique piece gets laid down, and then you've got the finishing stitch. And if I kept going through here, there's the little detailing, trimming, and then here I have another applique spot. So that heart there would also be something that would need to be appliqued. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go back to the beginning here, and I'm going to go back to when I first selected this design. And a very easy way to turn these into cut files is to simply tell the machine that that's what the code for the thread color should be. So if you have a brother machine that has a color screen and you have the ability to be able to go in and edit that design by touching the color key and taking that applique file piece and telling the machine, okay, I don't want this just to be a regular thread color. I want it to be the cut file color, just by touching that. So like magic, it told the machine that, instead of having that just be a green embroidery thread, I want that to be applique material thread. Well, there really isn't any applique material thread, but just by simply doing that and saying, okay, and going through any other parts of the design, whatever they would be. Let's see, the next piece would be my heart. And I would tell it the same thing. Let me just go down, scroll down there. Oops, scroll up, actually. Get that to go down. Sometimes you're with the static, your fingers just won't work on the machine. And I would tell that piece as well, applique material. Okay, that's as simple as it is. And then I would go ahead and I would save that file to the memory. In this case, I'm going to save it to the USB. And if I have a brother scan and cut machine that will recognize a PES file, and now that's, you need to look into what your machine options are, but most of the dealer model scan and cuts that have come out in the, not too distant past, actually have the ability that when we take this to the machine, it will read the PES file, and it will see that I told it not to just be a thread color anymore, to actually be an applique cutting piece. And it's just as simple as that. So I'm going to scroll over just to the other side of the machine here so that you can see what I've already stitched. And what I've already done is I'm putting together a quilt block, and I've using my nice big dime magnetic hoop so I can get a whole big size block here. I can turn this into a table runner or a pillow, whatever. And I have already gone ahead and stitched out part of this. And you can see that for this particular design, I needed a lot of cut pieces, my heart, all of those leaves, by telling it on the machine again, that's what I wanted it to be. Then I've got all the pieces already cut now from my scan and cut. And I'm going to show you how I actually took those from the USB that I saved it onto and then put it on there. But you could see I've got enough of these little leaves to fill in all those spaces so that once I stitch the placement line, which is still part of the design, I'm able to go ahead and I would take my little, I've got a little, just bring it into camera view so that you can see it. I've got a little ironing tool here. And what I usually do is I usually take that ironing tool and I put it on my dime pressing station. So this is my dime pressing station. A lot of you are familiar with that. I put the wool pad on top, and then I will actually take the hoop and place it on top of here and just fuse that piece down so that those are all melted in place before I actually go to stitch it. So you can see,
nice.
Just really, really easy. So I prepped my fabric. I'm going to go ahead and just show you what it looked like after I cut it. I prepped my fabric by simply starching it first. And I like to use a really heavy starch when I'm going to cut on the scan and cut. It just makes everything so much easier. Some fabrics will work fine without the starch, but adding starch just always makes it better and makes it easier and more foolproof. And then
that's a lot of leaves. A lot of leaves, Joanne. A lot of leaves. Thank goodness you had better.
A lot of leaves. And they're little, and they would take a ton of time to cut all those pieces by
Absolutely.
hand.
So Sue is asking if you use the rotary fabric blade for that cutting process.
Actually, no, that's you're going to see. I'm going to tell you exactly what I use when we go over to the cutter in a minute,
Okay.
but nothing fancy, nothing extravagant. Just simple cutting tools that came with the machine, nothing extra. But again, by starching it, and I like this particular product, many people know about it. It really makes your fabric very paper-like. And then once it dries and it's ironed, then I'm actually able to. Sorry,
Yeah, I think we lost your camera feed.
yeah, I don't know what's going on
So,
here.
so while you work on that, maybe I'll
Okay,
answer
we'll
some of these
switch
questions.
over.
Yeah, and I'll ask some of these questions. Some of these are specific to what you're showing. So I'm backing up, trying to get the ones that we missed here. And so Judy says, I have lace that is slightly stretchy. Can that be used successfully? So I would say yes to that, Judy. So I've used stretchy fabrics. And so the lace, like Joanne even just said that she prepped her lace with the Fuse Me. So if you can add some heat to it, then you could certainly do that, and that would reduce some of that stretchiness of your lace. And so I think it'll be fine. Worst case scenario, give it a test. I know that testing isn't our favorite thing to do, right? But but we certainly sometimes need to do it for sure. So
Definitely.
and yes, and then Shirley says she didn't see last week is the Fuse Me like the patch maker. So Shirley, the Fuse Me is a very lightweight fusible web, and it is not as thick as the patch maker patch attach. So the patch attach we use to attach patches, and so it's a much stronger, more aggressive bond. This is a very lightweight. It is still a permanent bond, but it's a very lightweight, so it's not going to change the hand of your fabric. So there's definitely a difference in those two. So Joanne, do you want to go back to that, or could you get your?
I think I'm good. Let me just finish just explaining so you know how
Sure.
this was treated. So the
Sure.
fabric itself, I'll show you my fabric. It's a batik, so it's a pretty good quality fabric. But again, I soaked it with the starch, let it dry, and then ironed it with a dry iron. And then once I did that, I took the Fuse Me and I fused it to the wrong side. So now I have a stiffened piece of cotton with fusible backing on it, ready to be cut so that once those pieces are cut and I stitch out the placement outlines, I can lay those pieces down, fuse them in place, and then continue the stitching. So hopefully that makes it clear to everybody.
Yeah,
And you
I
can
think so. So the Terrio Magic is what you use to stiffen first, you're saying. So Terrio Magic to stiffen the fabric. It's like a heavy starch, and then adding the Fuse Me fusible web so that your pieces are ready to be fused. So is that the order that you did?
That's exactly the order. And like I said, the starch itself, just to me, it's almost like it's like a precautionary measure. It's like I always know that I'm going to get superior results when my fabric is stiffened. Now, maybe it's
Right.
going to work okay when it's not stiffened, but I don't want to leave that question up in the air. So I just go ahead and stiffen it anyway because
Yes,
it's going to
absolutely.
all wash out. If that, if I didn't make that clear as mud, this completely washes out when
Washes
you're
out.
done. So
Yeah,
again,
it's
we're
like,
dealing with
yeah.
washable fabrics.
Right, absolutely. So then Shirley's saying, would this work on heavy fabric? So this is a little further back. So I'm not sure if she's referring to the cutting method or just the applique, but
I think she asked that question when we were talking about
Fuse
Fuse
Me.
Me. So I think we're good.
Yes,
I
and
think we're good.
yes, that would work on heavy fabric. So, and let's see what else we've got here. So I'm just reading through
And
the
there are other fabric stiffeners. In fact, if you can even use just regular starch, but the beauty of this particular product is that it's designed to dry by itself, and then when you iron it, you're not ironing anything that's wet, so nothing gets transferred to your iron, and you just need a good warm dry iron, and it completely you know smooths it out and just makes it just gives it body. I mean, a lot of people like to sew with fabric that's not pre-washed because they like that little bit of extra body that's in there. Well, I like to pre-wash my fabric and then I add the body back into it by using this. So yes, Marianne, you do want to wash it out when you're done.
Yes.
Definitely.
And then Deborah's saying, where do you find, she says the cereal magic, but I think she's the terrible. It's with a T. And then
It's
how do you use
readily
this?
available, very
Yeah.
common. And if you just look
Check
for
your local
liquid
dealer.
fabric stabilizers, you'll probably find some other options as well.
Yeah. And so then Heidi's saying, can we share the link for that fusible? So the fusible is the Fuse Me, and that is at dzgns.com. So that's a dime fusible web. It's our exquisite brand. So check our dzgns.com page and search Fuse Me, FUSEME, and that'll get you over there. So then somebody says, I don't think you can iron silk. And I kind of agree with that, but there's so many variations in all of our fabrics, right, Joanne, that these days
It's, you know
they're
what, when
hybrids.
in doubt, test it out and just see what, and even like your iron temperature. I know somebody asked earlier, what do you need for the iron temperature? Well, on the Fuse Me, it tells you set household iron to medium high dry heat. So that's probably pretty much a cotton setting, but your cotton setting on your iron might be different. So just test on a scrap. If your iron is not hot enough, then the Fuse Me is not going to melt and separate off of the paper. If it's sticking to the paper, then your iron's not hot enough. I
Right.
haven't really found that you could over iron this, so I wouldn't worry about that being a concern. It tells you how many seconds to do it, and do it on two sides, and you'll see that it just becomes shiny, and that's how you know it's melted in there and the paper pulls away.
Good. And then Heidi's saying, will there have any designs that might work on the AccuQuilt? So just wanted to clarify. So these are for your embroidery machine. And then these designs that we're referring to, Joanne showing you how you can cut using the combination of your Brother embroidery machine and your scan and cut. And then I'm going to show how you can save those cut files from the Dime software and generate a cut file, but also I can show them, Joanne, how to generate a PDF so that they can cut with their scissors as well. So,
Yeah,
so maybe I'll head over and do that. If this
that
is
would
a
be great.
time, then,
I'll just refer to this one more time, and then you're going to switch over while I switch my scan and cut into place, and you'll be showing some software things. But if I've only got one heart to cut, I'm doing one little design part, and it's got, do I want to go through all this prep work? You've shown all those other methods. Maybe not. Maybe I don't need to. But if I've got all these itty bitty leaves to cut, and if I have option of using a digital cutter, yeah, you betcha, I'm going to reach for that tool
I
every
agree.
time, because it just makes my life so much easier. So.
Absolutely. Quicker. When you have a lot, it makes quick work of a lot of cutting. Absolutely. I totally agree. So I'll show them how.
You saw me do it on the Brother machine, but what you're going to show is, ways that, you can use all kinds of cutting machine options and ways to do it with the software. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Perfect. Okay, sounds good. So I'll show that, and then we'll come back and see you cut on your scan and cut. So, so let me head over to my software, and then I'm going to show you how to generate those files. So, Joanne actually sent me a file of the one that she was stitching, and I don't have that up. Bad me. And so I'm going to build it really quickly. And so she was using. Remember when she was describing her design collection? She's got all of the full designs that you're going to get, but she also gives you these individual parts. So what she's done is she's taken one of the parts and she made that cute little quilt block design. So she used a combination of this one and this little folk art heart here, or flower. So I'm going to bring that one in first, and then go back and grab the other part, and then I'll show you, and then we'll see how many of those pieces that she had to cut, and we'll save those from here. So I'm going to select this flower, and then I will just quickly move this and do some copying and pasting. So this is really easy to do. So I'm going to zoom out here so we can see everything, and I'm going to copy and paste. So copy, paste, and then mirror image to move this over to the other side here. Oh, my computer's lagging. So this is actually usually much quicker. So, but it's having to think about each thing that I do. And move that one over. And then we're going to zoom out again, and then I'm going to just select everything and make sure that it's all aligned. And now this is our Patch and Applique Maker software that I'm in, and the Patch and Applique Maker has a feature that allows you to choose an applique design and then quickly extract, so to speak, the cut files right from the applique design. So, and this works for any machine brand, any digital cutter brand, any embroidery machine brand. So there's Joanne's quilt block that she had created there. And so basically she had to cut out each one of these leaves and this flower portion here. So if I just select the flower, and I'm going to ungroup that, and just select, so the outside of the flower and the inside of the flower are applique pieces. So if I select that and press my cutter option, you'll see that it actually separates and creates that cut file whenever it generates here. There we go. So there's my base of my flower and the center part of my flower. All I have to do now is save those to my FCM or paper or an SVG. So you would choose, your cutting mat size. So like the Brother Scan and Cut 12 by 12 here. And when you click save, it's going to give you the option to save as SVG, FCM, and we even have the PLT format, which I think will work with some of the commercial cutters also. So you'll just save that, and that's the file you'll take to your Scan and Cut. But let me show you this really quickly. So look at all of these that she had to cut here. That's a lot of little leaves. And I definitely agree when she said, if I only had one to do, trimming in the hoop is not that big of a deal. But if you have this many leaves to cut, then it's a lot. So let's look at what the cutter does for this one. So she's got 4 of those, and each of those have 3 leaves. So I'm going to create 4 repeats there for my leaves. And let's take a look over here. We've got the heart, and we want 4 repeats of each of those. And when I click apply, look what it does. So there are the 4 for my stem with the leaves, and then the 4 hearts. And again, you would just save this to your cutter format. When you get to your cutter, it's already duplicated. So then you don't have to do your copying and pasting there. You just put in, and if you're making, I don't know, 12 of these blocks or 10 of these blocks or whatever, and you needed a lot more of these, you would just put in that number and click apply, and it's going to copy and paste those for you. So really super easy. Now, if you don't have a digital cutter, don't fret. You can save to paper. So just choose the paper option. And when you click save, this goes to a PDF. And then you'll be able to see my PDF format down here. You'll be able to then print that actual size and cut that out on a piece of paper. So that'll make that so much easier. So that's how you'll generate those cut files. So, and it looks like, I think Joanne may be ready with her digital cutter. So let's see how she cuts that out on the Scan and Cut on her camera there. Perfect.
I love the way you built that block so quick. And, again, it just shows the fun of taking those designs and mixing and matching them and doing something really, really, really special with them. Whatever type of fabric you want to put it on. So, all right. So you saw what I did. I'm just going to just reiterate. I took the design in the machine. I simply told it, okay, don't just stitch green thread. Don't just stitch red thread. Turn this into the applique cut file. So you do have to have it. It has to already be an applique design. You can't take a design that isn't an applique and just change the color because it wasn't digitized to be an applique. So we need to start with that. But this whole collection, has many, many appliques in it. So once I've done that, I've saved it. I'm going to be able now to touch the USB. And when you save on a Brother machine, it goes into something called a B pocket. So in the B pocket, you can see I've got that same design that you built there. Okay, the whole piece. And then I've got just the individual pieces that I use to build it. So I'm just going to make this kind of quick and easy today and show you how simple this is. Once I select that, now that's an embroidery design file. That's what that PHX is. It's saved in the machine format. So it's not quite ready yet, but if I go ahead and touch this little applique icon, Now, what I did before, the scan and cut actually sees that I selected those two pieces and I told them to no longer just be a thread color, but to now be an applique, coded as an applique cutting file. So all I need to do now is simply select that, and I can go ahead and select those leaves. I needed 4 sets of those, so I would just select 4. I would touch set, and you can see I've got now a whole row of those leaves, which exactly matches what I ended up cutting here. Well, I want to cut more than just my leaves. I want to cut my heart shapes at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and go to add, and we know we selected that to be an applique as well. I say okay, and I need 4 of those. So I'm going to say give me 4 of those. Touch set. Oh, and I don't want that one with the leaves. I want to separate that together and move that around. So now I can deal with each of these individual pieces separately if I want to. Actually, this is a better stylus for this. Okay, and because this is a scan and cut, this is what sets it apart from other digital cutters. I can actually say, all right, I've got a mat, just a standard fabric mat. This is the regular fabric mat. You can see it's well used, but it's still sticky. I've got my fabric stiffened. I've got the fusible on the wrong side, and I have now gone ahead. I don't know why I'm losing my camera
We
here.
lost it. There it goes. It's back.
Okay. It's plugged in. It should be perfectly fine, but it just wants to take a nap every once in a while. And so I've put the right side of my fabric against the mat, and I'm doing that because that's going to stick best to this actual fabric mat. You want to get that smoothed all the way down. So you want your fabric to be nice and secured there. If any of these designs were something that had a definite right or left, then I would want to flip them so that they'd be cutting upside down instead of right side up. But these are all symmetrical, so it doesn't matter. So everything that heart shape is going to be the same no matter which direction it is. But otherwise, I would be able to flip that. So I've got my pieces here that I have already determined just by looking at my screen. Oh, I need about 2 inches by about 11 inches long just by counting those grids, and then I can count again for the hearts. But once I've done that, then I can tell the machine, please scan those fabrics for me. I'm going to go ahead and load the mat and let it scan. And you can't see the bottom part, but what it's actually doing is it's actually scanning in what's on the mat itself. In just a second, it'll show up on the screen. And by the way, those same cut files that you did in the software can be done in the software and all saved onto the USB, so you don't have to do anything at the machine.
But you just loaded. It does. I will make the point that the software does separate out the colors. So notice Joanne's got her leaves for her green fabric and the hearts for the red fabric. And so when you save from the software, it separates out those 2 colors so that, you can bring them in separately as well. So
I love that feature because you're in the driver's seat. You can tell it what parts you want to be an applique. But look how easy it is now for me to just simply drag and drop all those pieces. So I'm wasting almost no fabric, and I know it's going to actually cut right on top of there. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay. And I want to show you this actually cutting. So let's go ahead and touch cut.
And while it's cutting, Joanne, we had, let me just look back here for a question. Someone was asking about when you rinse out the Terrio Magic. So she said, so confused. So that was Sharon. She said, confused. When do I rinse out the Terrio Magic?
Just when you're ready to wash your item, when you're all done.
Perfect.
So it's mine is all fused in place. And once it's fused in place, then I'm simply ready to, wash that item. All right, I can see I've got a few little glitches going on here, and I will tell you that sometimes when your mat sits out for several hours uncovered, like it might when you're preparing for a show, it can start to become a little bit unstuck. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to kind of pardon that. You can see that earlier today, I cut a perfect piece with no problem, but I prepped it, stuck it, cut it, and I was good to go. Like in
I
a
love I
short
love
period of
that
time.
when we're doing live, right, Joanne, and it doesn't go the way it did just 10 minutes ago, right?
Yep. Yep. And
So
then blade wise, I wanted you to know that this particular machine comes with two blades. One is designed for, it's beige, and it's designed for just a single layer of cotton fabric. And then the second blade that I'm using now is the black blade. And that one is designed for cutting when you have any type of a backing on your fabric, because that
oh,
adds
good to know.
a layer of thickness. So
Oh, good to know.
I'm not going to
So
have a perfect cut on those leaves, but
yeah, so while it's cutting there, I can just answer a few more of these questions here. So Sharon wanted to know if the Fuse Me is good for the heat press. It is a low melt, Sharon, so just make sure you read the instructions for what your temperature needs to be on your heat press, but should work just fine. And then we have Sharon also said, what brand of the software is the patch and applique maker? That's actually our Dime software. So it's our Dime Inspiration series, and it's the patch and applique maker. Oh, that's gorgeous, Joanne. Look at that beautiful cut.
perfect
I love
cards. I
it.
got a few little glitches on my leaves where they got just a little, again, they separated from the fabric just a little bit.
I
Oops,
love
sorry
that.
about that.
And then there we go. Camera came back. So,
But you can
but
see
oh, it's still,
those are all workable. And
yeah.
that's actually another great reason to add the fusible to it. All I need to do now is take my little spatula, lift those all off. Now here's the cautionary tale. Okay. Remember I had fusible side facing up. So that's a little bit shiny now and I can see that. But when I take these off and I lay them in place to be used now on my actual project, I want to make sure I lay everything going the same way. So I know when I pick up this piece that this is the fusible, and when I actually put it down onto my fabric, it's going to have to go fusible side down. I don't want to iron on the wrong side there. Okay.
That's and Patricia's asking, she said she has an older scan and cut, Joanne, and what blade depth would you use for the Terrio Magic fabric?
That if you have an older scan and cut that doesn't have the auto blade, you definitely want to do a test cut. In fact, I do a test cut even with the auto blade. When the machine always recommends that you do that.
Yes,
And I did a little test piece, and when I did that, I know that I'm good to go. So
yeah.
you have to experiment. No two scan and cut machines that are designed without the auto blade cut alike. So your test always tells you if you need to change that blade depth, you increase it by about a half of a number at a time, a little bit more at a time. You do another test cut until you get a perfectly clean cut.
Perfect. And then we also have so Wendy Engel Henson is asking about the cutter in the software. Is that in Toolshed or do you need PEP? So I was showing the cutter feature from Patches and Applique Maker software. That's one of Dime's pieces of software that's all about making patches and applique. So the cutter feature is in there. The cutter feature is actually also in My Block Piecer, if you own that one. And Perfect Embroidery Pro does not have the cutter icon, but Perfect Embroidery Pro can export to FCM. So Perfect Embroidery Pro is able to do that. If you have the free embroidery toolshed, it doesn't have the cutter or the export artwork capability. So you need Perfect Embroidery Pro, Patch and Applique Maker, or My Block Piecer has those features. And I think that also answers Barbara's question here a little bit. So the Patch and Applique Maker, yes, is an additional add-on, Barbara. It is all about patches and applique. It gives you some one-click features and some amazing designs built in there as well. So I think that catches us up a little bit on our
I did see a question on what actual scan and cut machine I have. I'm using the SDX 225, which obviously, like I said, uses PDS files. It comes with these two blades. This one is the one I use, the black one, because this is designed for use if you've added a backing to your fabric. And when I add that Fuse Me, I now have a backing on it. This blade was designed to work with the new fabric mat. So you don't have to put, both blades actually, you don't have to put another separate sheet on your mat. The mat is designed as is to cut fabric, but the difference is this will cut just a single thin layer of untreated cotton fabric. For just about everything else, I switched to this blade because it's just got a little bit more cutting power. Yes, if you're doing some specialty fabrics, you know, we were talking earlier about specialty fabrics, you know, batiks and suede cloth and knits and all these different things. Well, you know, on some of those, you're going to have some different kind of characteristics. And there is a new rotary cutting blade that works with some of the scan and cuts that will give you more coverage for those little bit of tricky things. So you don't have to do as much prep with.
And then Barbara's asking Joanne, so this kind of leads into this question slightly, but about does the Brothers Scan and Cut work with other brands of embroidery machine and sewing machines, or is it exclusive to Brothers? So maybe you want to talk about that for just a little bit.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, obviously they are made to marry with the Brother machine, so that, you know, when I did what I did on the machine and got to the Scan and Cut says, oh, I know what you did. You just simply selected that little applique icon on your machine. And now I know what that means. So I know that means you want to cut an applique piece. What you showed with the software is the options for any other, you know, cutting file so that you can then have that cut file ready to go and you can basically bypass the machine. So hopefully that
right. And that's I don't have a Brother machine that speaks to my Scan and Cut. My Brother machine is an older 10 needle. So they don't talk to one another, but I still can use it. I save my files from the embroidery machine or the Scan and Cut canvas, or, you know, there's plenty of places that sell digital files that you can just put in there that are the format for your cutter. So it can work as a standalone. It doesn't have to be with the embroidery machine.
Exactly.
And then go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just saying, and let me flip over just so that we're absolutely clear on that, because what you did, you showed how to create that file in the software, but I did the exact same thing. And then I transferred it to the machine. So let me pull this up just really quick. I'm going to get back up on the screen here. You saw the ones that I took from what I did at the machine. But if I go back home and I go back to retrieve data, I did the same thing you did. I created a folder with cut files, and I saved the cut file directly in the Patch and Applique Maker software as the heart cutting shape and as the leaf. So I could do the same thing I did there and pull that up and then scan that
duplicate.
in. Those files were already created in the software, already done, so they didn't need any machine connection. And I know somebody has probably asked this. If they didn't, they are going to, because now I'm going to give them the answer. What about changing size? Do you have to change size? I didn't change size at all. And all of my pieces, you saw when I layered that on, you know, all of my little itty bitty leaf pieces.
Confetti now, right?
Yeah, but they match
the perfect size.
The placement outline. So
and right, and that's right from the machine to the Scan and Cut. It knows the size because it's for the applique, so it knows what size it needs to cut out. And from Dime software, it knows as well from that.
It's all perfect, and it's like, how does it get any better than that? Because I only need to do what I need to do, and it understands all the rest.
Right, absolutely. And then a couple of other questions about the Scan and Cut, and I just have one more thing I wanted to share before we go, and then we have to give our everyone the new free on the house design too. So, but we've got a question from Mary and. Mike B says, can you use the turquoise or the purple mat? Do you know that?
If you don't have the new golden fabric mat, then you're going to use the applique sheet, or the fabric sheet that goes on your mat. And I don't remember now if it's the purple one or the turquoise one, but your little leaflet that comes with your Scan and Cut tells you which mat you put that sheet onto. It's a green sheet that you peel off, and it turns your mat into a fabric cutting mat.
And then Kathy says, will the rotary cutter work with the Fuse Me on the backing? I haven't used the rotary cutter, so what's your take on that, Joanne?
I haven't actually had the opportunity to use it yet either, but it's the rotary cutter is just, it's your tricky fabric cutter.
Gotcha. So if you can cut it with the standard blade,
you use that. If you don't necessarily have something tricky, then you don't need to use it. But
gotcha.
it's always something you can experiment with.
Oh, perfect. So,
and
okay.
The golden mat does not work on the old scan and cuts. The golden mat is for,
that's a good question.
The golden mat goes with the auto blade technology. So.
Oh, good question. Good question. So, Joanne, since our crafting world and our embroidery world have collided, I wanted to share, I actually did one of your designs using heat transfer vinyl. So I actually just wanted to share information on that. I thought it was very fun to try something new. Now, I have to say I've done glitter before, but a friend of mine works for Caesar, Stephanie Young, and she posted the idea of using a flock heat transfer vinyl. So this kind of feels like a suede, but guys, if you have never done this, this is super easy. So this is the one of the Star collection designs from the Just Jackets collection we're talking about today. And I just stitched it using this heat transfer vinyl. So heat transfer vinyl has a carrier sheet. So to use it as a fabric, you do need to separate it. And then you would place this down over your applique placement line. The same thing with the glitter. It has a carrier sheet for any of the heat transfer vinyl. So you take that off and then you can use that like a fabric. But look at you guys, I left these because it just rips away. It is the most rewarding thing ever, is to just sit here and not have to trim anything. So you just rip it away. And look at this. I just did it after my satin stitch, Joanne, and look at that.
It's amazing, Ashley. That is amazing.
Isn't that cool? Like, I wanted to rip. I did this one and I was like, oh, I should save some of these for on the camera, but it's so rewarding just to rip. I mean, it's like a paper towel. Yep. And because this is heat transfer, it's fusible, and it's going to fuse to the fabric. Since it will rip away from the outside, it will rip away on the inside the same way. So once you get all your vinyl pieces off here, make sure that you fuse this so that it's permanently bonded and won't rip away. So I had fun with that. I just wanted to show something just a little bit different and unique. And so if any of you guys have been collecting heat transfer vinyl and haven't been using it, then put it in your embroidery designs, in your applique design. So I've already got my 4th of July shirt, so I'm ahead of the game.
So many possibilities. I think we covered a lot of ground today, because we were is there any other way to do an applique? I don't know if there is. I think we pretty much covered it. But what I would encourage everybody to do is, sit down with what tools do you currently have, and then go through the video, go through all the different options. Maybe even, take some notes and say, option 1 would be to do it this way. Option 2 would be to do it that way. And then follow along and actually do an experiment. And then you're going to see what works. Obviously, if you need to reach out to me, you'll find me at letsgosew.com, and I'm happy to help. If I don't have an answer, I'll find one for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I agree, Joanne. We learned so much from experimenting, and a lot of amazing inventions are created from experimenting. So we should all do that. So I really appreciate you being here today. I thank you so much for all of your tips. Everybody is chiming in saying that they loved it, and that it was a good show. So, and thanks everyone. So I just have one last thing to share with everybody, and that's our new on the house design.
It's a parting gift. It's a gift.
Yes. So a parting gift. I love that. So those of you that have already taken advantage of this, keep posting your pictures. Share with us. Make different projects using these free designs. So the on the house design for this week is this adorable little yarn basket. So these designs coordinate with our exquisite thread. So make sure you take the included included once you do your download, included card to your exquisite thread dealer, and you can get those matching colors. This particular design was digitized with a unique spiral fill in the yarn to give the yarn a realistic look. And also it has a really beautiful weave in the basket, and that's that special fill.
The basket weave is
design.
so much fun.
Isn't that cute? So it's so nice to get designs that are digitized well and stitch out beautifully. So this is a shout out and some love to all of our knitters and crocheters and yarn users and yarn lovers. And so we know that we all like to craft in different ways. So that's your free design. I challenge all of you to stitch this design on anything that you think it would go on. Maybe it's a bag that holds your knitting or crocheting tools, and tell us what you did. So use the hashtag on the house or dime sew along to show us what project you did, and we will feature those in our Facebook Live Between Friends each week. So to find your free design, if you haven't already, go to dzgns.com. That's where you can also get the special price on just jackets from Joanne. And to get the free design, you want to click that design and projects and then click the free design option. And then you'll see not only the free on the house designs, but I think the small town charms are still up there. So if you haven't taken advantage, download those while you're over there as well. So your free ship code you normally get for your product, there's no free ship code today because the Just Jackets design collection is a download. Joanne, that means they can get playing right away.
They can be stitching today.
Exactly. And the last thing I wanted to say before I wanted to sign off was next week, Eileen will be back with Sue Brown from OML Embroidery. Sue always does a stitch along with the projects that we release and the design collection. So she'll be on next week. I think that's a great transition because we'll be releasing another one. And I'm pretty sure it has a special project that goes with the on the house design for next week. So visit over here again. Make sure if you've got any friends that love applique, or if they have a digital cutter, right, Joanne, or if they have a brother embroidery machine and a scan and cut together, share this video, send it to them so that they can maybe learn something too. So thank you all for being here. A special thank you to you, Joanne. I couldn't have done it without you. Thanks so much.
It's been a blast being with you and everybody here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and taking the time out of your day to spend part of the day with us. We really appreciate you.
I know we wouldn't be here with it if it wasn't for all of those ladies, right? So we appreciate you guys. And thanks to Eileen for trusting this to you and I, Joanne. I enjoyed it, and she'll be back next week. I know she's watching from home, so she'll be back with you guys next week. And so for now, Joanne, I think we can say goodbye, and we'll see you guys next week.
Happy sewing.